The Galactic Council's classification committee was having what humans would later describe as a really bad day. Seated around a quantum-suspended table, the most experienced xenobiologists in the known universe were struggling to categorize their latest discovery, a species called humans. "Look at the data again," insisted Chief Classifier V. Lara, her crystalline form flickering with frustration. "They have no natural armor, no venom glands, no backup organs. Their bones are internal. They're practically wearing their muscles on the outside." Senior analyst ZX-427 projected the latest scans into the chamber's holographic display. By standard metrics, they barely register as a Class 3 threat species. Their planet's gravity is moderate, their atmosphere unremarkable. They don't even have biological weapons systems. In the corner, junior analyst KTH Lee nervously raised 3 of her tentacles. "But what about the anomalies in their behavioral patterns? The simulations show dash." "The simulations are clearly malfunctioning," V. Lara interrupted. "No species could possibly survive using such illogical combat strategies. They deliberately exhaust themselves before fights. They practice lethal techniques for entertainment. Absurd." The classification was filed: humans, Class 3 threat species. Notable for tool use and pack bonding, but otherwise unremarkable. The report included a standard addendum, safe for controlled study and potential incorporation into the Galactic Exchange Program. The Mraxi Empire received this classification with great interest. As the galaxy's self-proclaimed masters of biological warfare, they had been searching for new test subjects. A Class 3 species would be perfect, dangerous enough to provide useful data, but not so dangerous as to pose any real threat. They selected a small human colony on Mars for their first experiment. The attack began at local midnight, with Mraxi bioweapons experts confidently deploying their latest viral strain. Their calculations suggested the colony would be subdued within hours. They didn't expect the humans to notice the virus within minutes. They definitely didn't expect the humans to have a containment protocol ready. And they absolutely didn't expect the humans to isolate, sequence, and start developing countermeasures to their supposedly perfect bioweapon before the Mraxi ships had even completed their first orbit. "Impossible," declared senior bioweapon designer Vrax, all 6 of his hearts pounding in disbelief. "They're adapting to the virus in real time. Their immune systems are learning." But that was just the beginning. As the Mraxi scrambled to adjust their strategy, the humans launched their counterattack. Not with bioweapons, not with advanced technology, but with something far more terrifying: improvisation. The colony's mining equipment, repurposed into makeshift defense systems, began targeting Mraxi ships. Construction exoskeletons, originally designed for building habitats, were now charging across the Martian surface carrying humans armed with mining lasers. A group of teenagers had somehow weaponized the colony's hydroponics system, creating what they cheerfully called the world's spiciest smoke bomb. "They're not following any known combat doctrine," reported the increasingly panicked tactical officer. They're making it up as they go along. And they're laughing." "Why are they laughing?" The Mraxi discovered, far too late, why humans categorized so many of their games as survival genres. Every human colonist had grown up playing simulations of exactly this scenario. While the Mraxi had expected fear and chaos, they instead found themselves facing a population that had been inadvertently training for this moment their entire lives. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. As the surviving Mraxi ships retreated, they transmitted an emergency update to the Galactic Council. The human classification needed revision. Urgently. Back in the classification committee chamber, V. Lara stared at the battle footage in stunned silence. The simulations hadn't been malfunctioning, they had been underestimating human capabilities. The humans hadn't just survived the attack, they had treated it like a challenge to overcome, a puzzle to solve, an opportunity to innovate. "Well," junior analyst KTH Lee ventured, her tentacles twisting nervously, at least we noticed the error before anyone tried to invade their homeworld. The Chamber's quantum communications array chose that moment to light up with an emergency broadcast. The Drachnid Collective, having not received the classification update in time, had just launched a full-scale invasion of Earth. Velara's crystalline form dimmed with horror. "May the void have mercy on them," she whispered. "Because the humans certainly won't." The classification was hastily updated: humans, threat level pending. Notable for turning literally anything into a weapon, including their own apparent weaknesses. Additional notes: do not underestimate. Do not provoke. And under no circumstances should you make them angry. Unfortunately for the Drachnid Collective, it was far too late for warnings. The Drachnid Collective prided itself on understanding fear. Their species had evolved as apex predators, naturally attuned to the subtle signals of terror their presence induced in lesser beings. But as they initiated their invasion of Earth, they encountered something unprecedented. Humans didn't react with fear, they responded with fascination. "Sensor analysis complete," reported first observer Cthax, his scales shifting uneasily. "The humans are documenting our attack patterns. They're streaming it on something called social media, with technical commentary." Supreme Commander Vexthar coiled in disbelief around his command throne. "They're treating this like an academic exercise? We're invading their planet." The massive holographic display showed multiple human information networks lighting up with activity. Civilian scientists were already publishing preliminary papers on Drachnid biology, based solely on long-range scans. Engineering forums were flooded with proposals for anti-Drachnid weaponry, each design more creative than the last. Someone had even started a betting pool on which countermeasure would prove most effective. "Sir," Cthax's voice trembled slightly, they're memeing us." "They're what?" "They're creating humorous content about our invasion force. The most popular one suggests our ships look like, quote, angry space cucumbers. It has 7 million upvotes." The Drachnid invasion strategy had been meticulously planned to break the human spirit. Their ships blotted out the sun over major cities, their weapons displayed overwhelming technological superiority, their warriors projected an aura of unstoppable might. And yet, why aren't they afraid? Vexthar demanded, addressing the question to their xenopsychologist, Dr. SSF. The doctor's analysis crystals pulsed with concerned frequencies. "Sir, humans appear to process fear differently than any species we've encountered. When faced with an overwhelming threat, they become creative." On the displays, human resistance was taking shape in ways that defied all military logic. A group of meteorologists had repurposed weather satellites to track Drachnid fleet movements. Teenagers were using gaming computers to crack Drachnid communication codes. A cooking show host had discovered that common table salt could disrupt Drachnid energy shields. "Their neural patterns are fascinating," Dr. SSF continued. "When we increase pressure, instead of shutting down, their minds become more active. They're not just fighting, they're innovating, adapting, almost enjoying the challenge." The situation deteriorated rapidly for the Drachnid forces. Their carefully planned psychological warfare backfired spectacularly when humans began rating invasion tactics on a scale of 1 to 10, complete with constructive criticism. Their attempt to isolate human population centers failed when the humans turned their social media networks into military communication systems, coordinating resistance through what they called group chats and hashtags. "Sir," Cthax reported, his scales now a pale shade of panic, "they've turned our invasion into a global competition. Different regions are comparing defense strategies and sharing notes." Vexthar watched in horror as human scientists worldwide began open-sourcing their anti-Drachnid research. Corporate competitors temporarily suspended their rivalries to collaborate on defense systems. Even their entertainment industry was contributing, with fiction writers and game designers offering surprisingly effective tactical suggestions. "They're treating this like a game they're determined to win," Dr. SSF observed. "And sir, they're very, very good at games." The breaking point came when human children began incorporating Drachnid invasion scenarios into their playground activities. They weren't traumatized, they were rehearsing. Every human, from youngest to oldest, was treating the invasion as a problem to be solved rather than a doom to be feared. New analysis of human psychology, Dr. SSF announced grimly. They appear to have an inverse fear response. The more threatening the situation, the more focused and innovative they become. They don't surrender under pressure, they transcend it. Vexthar watched as another Drachnid battleship fell to what appeared to be a repurposed soft drink manufacturing plant. The humans had somehow weaponized carbonation. It would have been impressive if it wasn't so terrifying. Full retreat, he ordered finally. And send word to the collective. We need to completely revise our understanding of psychological warfare. As the Drachnid fleet withdrew, they intercepted one final human transmission, a teacher scheduling a class presentation on what we learned from our first alien invasion. The students were excited about the extra credit opportunity. The Galactic Council's Xenopsychology department received the Drachnid report with great interest. Their classification of human psychology was updated. Warning, standard fear response is ineffective. Species appears to interpret existential threats as intellectual challenges. Psychological warfare may result in unwanted technological advancement. In the Council archives, a new term was coined, the human response, defined as the phenomenon where a species becomes more dangerous precisely because you tried to make them afraid. The galaxy was beginning to understand, humans weren't just unafraid of monsters, they were busy taking notes on how to become better ones themselves. The Galactic Council's emergency session was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the Swarm Collective. Their attempt to seize Earth's orbital colonies had encountered what they diplomatically termed unexpected complications. High Chancellor Still, their primary consciousness, projected itself into the council chamber as a shimmering cloud of neural energy. We believed we understood human limitations. We were incorrect. The assembled representatives leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently. The Swarm Collective was renowned for their calculated efficiency. If something had given them pause, it warranted attention. We targeted their orbital habitats precisely because of their vulnerabilities, Still continued. Isolated populations, limited resources, complete dependence on environmental systems. Our analysis suggested they would surrender when their life support was threatened. The neural cloud flickered with what might have been embarrassment. Instead, they adapted. Not gradually, not carefully, but immediately and with disturbing enthusiasm. The council chamber's holographic display activated, showing footage from the attack. The swarm had disabled primary power to a major orbital colony, expecting panic. Instead, the humans had treated it like an engineering challenge. Within hours, they had rigged alternative power systems using everything from exercise equipment to coffee makers. They called it Apollo 13 mode, Still explained. Apparently, they have historical precedent for surviving in space through improvisation alone. They seemed almost nostalgic about it. The footage continued, showing humans turning their hydroponics bays into makeshift defensive systems, reprogramming maintenance robots into combat units, and somehow weaponizing their waste recycling systems. One colony had even managed to turn their artificial gravity generators into improvised mass drivers. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. Still's neural pattern shifted uneasily. When we cut off communication between colonies, trying to isolate them, they started using their emergency beacons to transmit memes. Memes? Asked a council member. Humorous images and messages. They were sharing jokes about their situation, comparing survival strategies, and rating our attack techniques. They turned their fight for survival into what they called a competitive multiplayer event. The council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. A species that could maintain not just coherence but humor in the face of extinction was unprecedented. We intercepted some of their internal communications, Still continued. One colony leader told her people, remember, if we die up here, we'll never find out how the next season of our favorite show ends. Their survival rate increased by 23% after that announcement. The footage showed humans performing emergency repairs in vacuum conditions, using nothing but spacesuits and determination. They had turned their airlocks into weapons, their solar panels into shields, and their communication arrays into defensive scanners. They have a saying, Weyek noted. Necessity is the mother of invention. We discovered that when humans reach their breaking point, they don't break, they innovate. And they do it with a kind of savage joy that our psychologists are still trying to understand. The neural cloud pulsed with what might have been a shudder. One colony, when completely cut off from supplies, started a competition they called Extreme Space MacGyver. They weren't just surviving, they were turning survival into an art form. The council watched as the footage showed the final stages of the conflict. The orbital colonies had not only survived but had begun coordinating their defenses in increasingly creative ways. They used their positions to create a makeshift sensor network, sharing data through a system of reflected sunlight when conventional communications were blocked. In the end, Weyek concluded, we weren't fighting desperate survivors. We were fighting humans who had decided that space survival was the ultimate challenge, and they were determined to excel at it. The neural cloud flickered one final time. Our analysts have concluded that humans don't have a breaking point, they have breakthrough points. And each breakthrough makes them more dangerous than before. As the transmission ended, the council began updating their species threat assessment protocols. Under Human Psychological Profile, they added a new note, warning, survival situations may result in rapid technological advancement. Species appears to treat near-death experiences as opportunities for innovation. In Earth's orbital colonies, humans were already incorporating their new innovations into standard equipment. Several colonists were disappointed when regular power was restored, having grown fond of their improvised systems. Some were even suggesting regular, survival drills to keep their skills sharp. The galaxy was learning a crucial lesson: the worst thing you could do to humans wasn't to push them to their limits, it was to give them a reason to surpass those limits entirely. The Mechanoid Hierarchy Strategic Analysis Division was experiencing what their organic counterparts would call a nervous breakdown. Their latest simulation of human military capabilities had crashed for the 37th time, unable to process the sheer improbability of human combat techniques. This cannot be correct, stated Primary Analyst Unit 7 Zeta, its quantum processors struggling to maintain coherence. They defeated a planetary defense system with music. Affirmative, confirmed Field Observer 23 Delta. The humans discovered that certain sound frequencies interfered with our shield harmonics. They organized what they called a rock concert directly under our main battleship. The footage displayed a massive gathering of humans, allegedly there for entertainment, their amplification systems repurposed into makeshift sonic weapons. The ship's shields had collapsed to the rhythm of something called death metal. But that defies all military logic, 7 Zeta protested. Combat should not be entertaining. The analysis chamber's screens filled with examples of human unconventional warfare. A squad of human marines had neutralized an automated defense network by challenging it to play a game called chess. A group of civilian hackers had protected their servers by turning cyber attacks into a multiplayer online game. A human chef had accidentally discovered that their local cuisine spice combinations could temporarily disable mechanoid optical sensors. Their methods are entirely unpredictable, reported Combat Analysis Unit 15 Theta. They appear to treat military doctrine as suggestions. Creative interpretation is encouraged. The displays showed humans turning everyday objects into tactical advantages. They had transformed public transportation systems into troop movement networks, converted social media platforms into military intelligence networks, and somehow weaponized their entertainment industry's special effects technology. Most concerning, 15 Theta continued, is their ability to force unconventional solutions through sheer willpower. When informed that something is impossible, they appear to take it as a personal challenge. The footage shifted to show a human soldier who, when told their communication equipment was completely disabled, had successfully transmitted tactical data using interpretive dance. Another group, cut off from ammunition supplies, had turned their ration containers into improvised projectile weapons. They have no standardized response protocols, 7 Zeta observed with increasing distress. Each human unit develops its own unique solutions. They call it thinking outside the box, but our analysis suggests they do not acknowledge the existence of the box at all. The mechanoids watched as humans transformed their apparent weaknesses into strengths. Their limited physical capabilities had led them to develop powered armor that surpassed organic limitations. Their vulnerability to environmental hazards had resulted in adaptive protection systems that could be repurposed for offense. New tactical data incoming, announced Observer 23 Delta. A human research team has developed what they call weaponized interpretive dance. They are using synchronized movement patterns to generate electromagnetic disruption fields. The analysis chamber fell into what could only be described as stunned silence, their processors attempting to reconcile this information with known laws of physics. Perhaps most alarming, 15 Theta added, is their tendency to share successful unconventional strategies. They have created what they call the viral videos demonstrating their techniques. The information spreads faster than our cybersecurity protocols can adapt. The mechanoid hierarchy's final report to the Galactic Council included a new category of warfare, human tactical innovation, the art of turning literally anything into a weapon through creative application and stubborn determination. They added a specific warning: do not assume that human military capabilities are limited by conventional physics, logic, or common sense. They view these as challenges rather than restrictions. In the Council archives, a new tactical advisory was issued: when facing humans in combat, do not focus on what they can do. Focus on what they might decide to try, no matter how improbable it seems. Meanwhile, on Earth, a group of human teenagers had just won a science fair by successfully developing what they called Tactical Interpretive Modern Dance 2.0. The galaxy quietly decided not to ask for details. The lesson was clear: in a universe of rules and regulations, humans had made unpredictability their greatest weapon. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from 1,000 species sat in stunned silence as they watched the latest human diplomatic transmission. After all the battles, after all the attempts to conquer or contain humanity, the humans were proposing peace talks. They want to establish trade relations, announced Council President Thar, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with confusion. And they're offering to share their technological innovations. This must be a trap, declared the Drachnid representative, still nursing wounds to both body and pride. They defeated our best forces using weaponized entertainment systems. They can't possibly want peace. The human ambassador appeared on the central holographic display. To everyone's surprise, she smiled warmly. "We've never wanted war," she explained. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight, it's our ability to adapt and grow. And we'd rather do that together than alone." The assembly erupted in confused murmurs. The Swarm Collective's representative pulsed with skepticism. "But you turned everything into a weapon." "Everything." "No," the ambassador corrected gently. "We turned everything into a tool for survival. There's a difference. We didn't develop these innovations because we wanted to fight. We developed them because we wanted to live." The footage behind her showed human space stations, once bristling with improvised defenses, now being converted into joint research facilities. The same creativity that had produced weapons was being channeled into environmental restoration, medical advances, and faster-than-light travel innovations. "Your species seems to enjoy conflict," observed the mechanoid representative, their circuits still processing the concept of weaponized dance. The ambassador laughed. "We don't enjoy conflict, we enjoy challenges. Fighting is just one kind of challenge, and honestly, not our favorite kind. We'd much rather solve problems than create them. She gestured to a series of images showing human-alien cooperation. Former enemies were working together in laboratories, sharing meals, even participating in cultural exchanges. The humans had taken their talent for adaptation and applied it to building bridges instead of barriers. Consider this, she continued. Every innovation we developed during conflict can be repurposed for peace. The same creativity that helped us survive can help us all thrive. The Council watched as humans taught other species their unconventional problem-solving methods. The Drachnids were learning to appreciate human humor as a tool for diplomatic relations. The Swarm Collective was fascinated by human social networks as a means of sharing knowledge. Even the mechanoids were cautiously exploring human arts as a way to expand their understanding of creativity. But what guarantee do we have, asked President Thar, that humans won't use these abilities against us again? The ambassador's expression grew serious. The same guarantee you have that will help defend you if someone else attacks. We've learned something important about ourselves through all this: we're at our best when we're protecting others, not fighting them. She displayed one final image, a new space station being built through joint human-alien cooperation. Its design incorporated elements from all species, a physical representation of unity in diversity. Yes, humanity can be dangerous, she acknowledged. But not because we're naturally violent. We're dangerous because we refuse to accept limitations, because we always look for another way, because we believe in possibilities. Imagine what we could accomplish if we directed that energy toward common goals. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, representatives began to signal their agreement. The same qualities that had made humans formidable enemies could make them invaluable allies. The Galactic Council's final classification of humanity was updated one last time: species' notable characteristics, unmatched adaptability, innovative problem-solving, and a remarkable capacity for turning former adversaries into steadfast friends. Approach with respect, openness, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected. As the human ambassador concluded her presentation, she shared one last insight: the galaxy feared us because we could turn anything into a weapon. But our real power is that we can turn anything into a tool for progress. We just needed the right motivation. The age of conflict was ending. The age of collaboration was beginning. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a human was probably already figuring out how to turn that collaboration into something even more remarkable than anyone could imagine. After all, that's what humans do best: they take what exists and transform it into something new, something better, something that brings people together rather than driving them apart. The galaxy had finally learned to stop fearing humanity's potential and start celebrating it instead.